I'm done pretending, Sam. By the end of this week, you'll understand what it feels like to lose everything. Those were the last words Mary Jane hissed across our living room floor before storming out to meet her ex, still convinced her fake wedding stunt would crush me. She didn't know I'd already slipped the final piece into place, a move that turned her little performance into a legally binding reality she could never escape. And when she walked into that church, smiling like she'd won, she had no idea she was walking straight into her own checkmate. Viewers, have you ever watched someone weaponize love against you, only to realize they handed you the perfect chance to rewrite the ending? What would you have done? Drop your thoughts below. Please subscribe, like, comment and watch till the ending. Share this interesting story to your family and friend. My name is Sam Jacob, a 38-year-old financial analyst living in Atlanta, Georgia, and on the night everything in my life truly shifted, I was alone in my downtown office, staring at a spreadsheet that suddenly felt meaningless. The sun had already dipped behind the skyline, leaving only a soft orange glow on the glass walls around me. My phone buzzed on the desk. When I saw the caller ID, Mary Jane, my wife of 4 years, I felt something tighten in my chest, something that had been happening a lot lately. I answered, expecting maybe a quick check-in, maybe another vague excuse about being out with the girls. Instead, laughter rushed through the speaker. Loud, sharp, mocking laughter from women I didn't even recognize. She was on speakerphone on purpose. Sam, Mary Jane said, her voice cold, controlled, almost amused, I'm done signing the divorce papers. Paper rustled behind her. More laughter. Someone whispered, girl, say it. Say the real reason. And they all exploded again like teenagers sharing a secret joke. For a long moment I didn't speak. I just listened. I'd never heard her laugh like that, sharp, careless, almost proud. It didn't match the Mary Jane I once knew. Once she used to call me my safe place. Now she was performing for an audience. I forced my voice steady. Mary Jane, what's the reason? Silence from her end, just breathing and the faint beat of whatever music they had playing. One of her friends hissed, not quietly enough, tell him about Derek. I didn't know a Derek. Not yet. Before the name Derek could settle in my mind, another voice on Mary Jane's end burst into laughter, and the call abruptly cut off, leaving me staring at my dark phone screen. The silence in my office felt heavier than the city traffic humming below. I leaned back in my chair, letting the word echo in my mind, Derek. It didn't belong anywhere in my marriage. At least, not in the version of my marriage I thought I was living. My mind drifted back to the first day I met Mary Jane 4 years ago in a Buckhead coffee shop. She'd been sitting with a book she clearly wasn't reading, stirring a latte long gone cold. She looked tired, but when she smiled at me, this bright, open smile, it felt like sunlight cutting through a gray morning. She told me about growing up in a chaotic home. Yelling parents, disappearing father, a childhood spent hiding behind headphones to drown out arguments. She swore she wanted peace, stability, something soft and dependable. I believed her because back then she believed it too. But something shifted almost a year into our marriage, as if the stability she claimed to crave became the very thing she resented. She started seeking stimulation, attention, compliments from strangers at bars, long nights out with friends I never met. She always apologized afterward, always promised she was just trying to feel alive again. I ignored the discomfort then, thinking it was temporary. But now, with that mysterious name hanging between us, I wondered if those nights were never temporary at all. Please don't forget to subscribe. Yeah, I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my parked car outside the office, engine off, the interior lit only by the street lamp above. My phone slipped from my hand twice because my palms were sweating. When dawn finally cracked over the skyline, I drove home slowly, rehearsing different versions of the confrontation. But as soon as I stepped inside, the house felt wrong. Too quiet. Too staged. Like someone had pressed pause on our life. Mary Jane wasn't home. Her gym bag was missing. Her toothbrush too. A duffel bag imprint still pressed into the couch cushions as if she had moved fast. Too fast for someone who just casually announced a divorce on speakerphone. I walked through the living room, noticing little shifts. Drawers slightly open, shoe rack half empty, a faint cologne scent that wasn't mine. It was subtle but unmistakable. By noon my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't laughter. It was a text from Mary Jane. We'll talk later. Don't make this messy. Later came sooner than she expected, because 2 hours after the text she called again, this time with more background noise, music, shuffling, and a deep male voice asking, "You good, MJ?" She didn't mute fast enough. "Sam," she said sharply as if trying to recover authority. I don't want drama. Just sign the papers. I'm moving on. I swallowed down the heat rising in my chest. Is Derek there with you? A long frozen pause followed. Then she said, if he was, what would you do? Her tone wasn't defensive. It was daring me. Her question, what would you do? Lingered in the air like smoke from a slow-burning fire. I didn't answer right away. I couldn't. I just stared at the phone as if it might confess something on its own. When she hung up, I sat on the edge of our bed, the same bed where we once planned vacations, argued about movie choices, whispered dreams into the dark. Everything felt distant, grainy, like an old film losing color. That was the moment I finally admitted it. Something had been off for months. And somehow Derek was the missing piece. I thought back to the first time she mentioned her new gym trainer. It was early spring, still cold enough that she wore my hoodie to her sessions. She came home flushed, excited in a way she hadn't been in a long time. He really pushes me, she'd said, almost breathless. At the time I took it as enthusiasm. But then she started staying longer. Leaving earlier. Wearing new leggings she never told me she bought. She'd come home smelling like men's deodorant, not the scent I used but something muskier, sharper, unfamiliar. One night, while she was showering, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message preview flashed. You coming tomorrow? Need that energy again, winking face, D. She deleted it by the time she walked out wrapped in a towel. I told myself it was harmless, professional, motivational. But now, replaying it all, a colder realization settled over me. This wasn't a new betrayal. This was the climax of something she'd been building and hiding, piece by piece. And somehow she expected me to crumble quick. Why please don't forget to subscribe. The more I replayed the past, the more a cold, deliberate pattern began to form in my mind. Mary Jane didn't just drift into an affair, she carved a path toward it long before Derek ever appeared. The realization hit me so sharply that I stood up from the bed, heart hammering, and walked to my study. That room had always been my sanctuary, dimly lit, quiet, lined with books she never touched. Now it felt like the only place I could breathe. A week before her speakerphone announcement, something odd had happened. Something I'd pushed aside because I didn't want to believe it mattered. I'd come home early from work and heard her on the phone in the hallway. Her voice was low but the tone was unmistakable. Nervous, flustered, almost giddy. When she heard me at the door, she ended the call so fast she fumbled it, forcing a laugh that felt stitched together. Just Vanessa, she'd said. But Vanessa's voice wasn't deep. And Vanessa didn't make her whisper like that. That same night, she made dinner, her specialty lemon pepper tilapia, and sat across from me with a distant smile, picking at her food while her foot tapped restlessly under the table. I should have asked questions. I didn't. I believed in giving her space, trusting she'd come to me if something was wrong. I didn't realize then that she wasn't drifting away, she was preparing an exit. Now, with the name Derek burning in my mind, an unsettling clarity settled in my chest. Mary Jane hadn't fallen into betrayal. She had been rehearsing it. By the next morning, the anger had burned into something quieter, more precise. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold, staring at the steamless surface. The house was too still. The kind of stillness that meant something had already been decided without me. When my phone buzzed again, I expected another careless message from her. Instead, it was a notification from our joint bank account, one I rarely checked because Mary Jane handled most of the household spending. A $1,450 withdrawal, marked with a vague description, personal training package. A package? Since when did gym training require that much money up front? My stomach tightened. I clicked through the last month's transactions. There were several similar withdrawals, different amounts, all vague, all spaced out just enough to avoid suspicion. I suddenly remembered a conversation I'd had with a colleague 2 weeks earlier. He worked part-time at a gym before joining my firm. When I mentioned the name of Mary Jane's trainer in passing, he gave me a strange look. You mean Derek? He'd said. I nodded. Yeah man, be careful with that one. He's got a reputation. I'd laughed it off back then, brushing him away with a naive confidence I now hated myself for. With the bank statements open in front of me and her speakerphone mockery still echoing in my head, I knew I needed truth, not from her but from someone who had no reason to lie. So I grabbed my keys, walked out of the house and headed toward the gym where Derek worked. I wasn't going there to start a fight. I was going to start uncovering the real story. Please don't forget to subscribe. The gym was busier than I expected for a weekday morning. Music thumped through the speakers, high energy, distracting, almost masking the unease twisting in my stomach. I walked past rows of treadmills until I spotted the front desk attendant, a young woman with box braids and a curious gaze. When I asked for Derek, her expression flickered, surprise first, then something like discomfort. "He's in the back office," she said, lowering her voice. "You a client?" Something like that. Her eyes shifted as if she wanted to say more. Instead, she pointed toward a glass door near the wait section. Through the window, I saw him, tall, muscular, leaning back in his chair, scrolling his phone with an easy arrogance that made my blood tighten. And then it hit me, the cologne scent I had noticed in my house. The same sharp musk floated faintly from the doorway. I knocked and Derek looked up, his face unreadable. "Yeah." I stepped inside. "I'm Sam, Mary Jane's husband." For the first time since I entered the gym, I saw a reaction, a quick widening of his eyes followed by a smirk that he tried, and failed, to hide. "Oh, right." He leaned back, folding his arms. "She didn't tell me you were coming?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "She didn't tell me a lot of things." For a moment, silence stretched between us, thick and electric. Then he laughed once, short and careless. "Look, man, whatever's going on between you two, that's y'all business." His tone tried to sound confident. But something in his eyes told me he was lying. I slid the folder across the small office desk in front of Derek. His eyes flicked from the paperwork to me and back again, uncertainty creeping into his posture. The harsh gym fluorescent lights glinted off the corner of a receipt labeled personal training package, another with a vague code and a sum I recognized. $7,200, money from our joint account, transferred to him over months. I didn't raise my voice. I simply said, "Explain this." Derek's jaw tightened, lips parting then closing again like a door slammed too fast. "I don't know what you expect me to say," he spat, leaning back as if the distance might protect him. "Mary Jane paid. Ask her." I flicked the file open. Next were text screenshots, timestamps, gym check-ins late at night when I was still working, photos of them leaving the gym in the same car at midnight. I pulled out my phone and tapped play. The speaker crackled. I heard Mary Jane's laughter, soft and intimate, then his voice murmuring low, clearly hers. His eyes narrowed. He rose slowly, muscles tensing. "That's circumstantial," he muttered, but I could tell he feared the proof. I stood too, footsteps echoing on the tile. "Tell her I have a copy too," I said quietly. "I sent it to my lawyer." Derek's face drained of color. He glanced at the door. Behind him, the gym noise masked our confrontation, but the weight of what I held was heavier than any barbell. He turned toward me. "Just know this, you started something you can't finish clean." Without another word he walked out. The door slid shut behind him. I stayed still, staring at the folder, the air heavy. Somewhere, unseen, a phone vibrated. "Please don't forget to subscribe." I left the gym with the folder tucked under my arm, but the moment I stepped into the parking lot, a chill cut through the Atlanta heat. My phone buzzed again. Mary Jane. Not a call this time. A long message that began with, "We need to talk before you make things worse." I didn't reply. I just drove home, letting the city blur past, each traffic light pulsing like a warning I didn't yet understand. When I pulled into the driveway, Mary Jane's car was already there, parked crookedly as if she'd arrived in a hurry. The porch light flickered, casting a harsh glow on her silhouette. She was sitting on the steps, arms wrapped around herself, still wearing her gym clothes. Her eyes snapped up when she saw me. "Sam, please," she said, standing quickly. "Can we just talk inside?" I walked past her without responding. She followed me into the living room like a shadow. The tension in the air crackled. It felt like the walls themselves were holding their breath. "I don't know what Derek told you," she started, voice shaky, "but it's not what you think." I placed the folder on the table with a soft thud. The sound made her flinch. "You've been using our account," I said calmly. "And lying. For months." I was just." Her voice broke. She sank onto the couch, hands trembling. "You weren't paying attention to me anymore, Sam." I felt invisible. Derek, he made me feel wanted. There it was, the confession she thought would soften the blow. It only hardened everything. She kept talking, words spilling out like she was trying to outrun the truth. "I didn't mean for it to get this far," she whispered, fingers clawing at her leggings. "I just wanted you to fight for me. To chase me. To prove I mattered." Her voice cracked on that last sentence, and for the first time in a long time she looked small. Not guilty. Not proud. Just lost. But I didn't move toward her. I didn't raise my voice. I simply sat across from her and let the moment settle, heavy and unflinching. Mary Jane, I said quietly, I shouldn't have to chase my own wife to remind her she matters. You had a marriage. You had stability. You had everything you said you wanted. Her eyes glistened. I know. I know I ruined it. No, I corrected. You didn't ruin it. I slid the signed divorce papers across the table toward her. You ended it. The realization hit her in a visible wave. She pressed a hand to her mouth, her breath unsteady, panic creeping in as if she'd only now understood the gravity of her choices. She tried standing, reaching for me, but I stepped back. I grabbed her packed suitcase from the hallway, she hadn't hidden it well, and set it by the door. Sam, please don't do this, she cried. You already did, I said, opening the door. The porch light flickered as she walked out into the night, shoulders shaking, each step echoing the finality she never expected to face. 3 months later, the alimony is settled, the house is quieter, and my life is steady again. But last week, a message came from an unknown number. It's bigger than you think. Call me. Something tells me this story isn't over. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share for more interesting stories.